Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Priscilla and I am from Teaching Brainiacs, and here we are with part 3 of our series for state exam prep. So here we have a problem about area. Before I get started, if you missed part 1 and part 2, it will be linked down below. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave them down below. You can feel free to email me or book a call with me or even just book a session with me. So right now we will go over fractions, and in this part this is area. So in this problem it specifically is asking about what is the area of a rectangle. And in case you forgot, remember we talked about reference sheets. In the reference sheet it does talk about what the equations are, so for area, for volume, and so on and so forth. In the last video we actually did go over quite a bit about volume and for total volume. For this one, we're going to do area, but with a twist. Now we have fractions. So let's get started. So here, it says area, and in case you forgot, area is length times width, right? So in this case, we have length, and this is our width. Alright, so we labeled everything to make sure we are on point. So for this, all you have to do is multiply these fractions. The cool thing about multiplying with fractions is that you don't have to change anything about it. You multiply across and that's it. And then you of course simplify, and we'll get to that in a second. So in this case we would have 6 4/5 times 4 3/4. Now what I personally like to do is I like to keep everything organized and categorized. What do I mean by that? In this case we have a 6 and a 4. I like to keep whole numbers together and the fractions together. So if we have 6 times 4, well 6 times 4 is what? 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 3 is 18, 6 times 4 is 24. So we multiply the fraction part, it is 4/5 times 3/4. So 4 times 3, 4, 8, 12, over 5, 10, 15, 20. When we put it all together, 24 and 12 20th. Now, so in this case, I will go through one way of doing it, and then I'll show you another way of doing it and give you the full explanation to help you understand more. Our problems are always a little bit more challenging because they have little words that could trick you and things like that. Jack puts 1/3 of birdseed into his feeder every time he fills it. How many times can Jack fill his bird feeder with 4 pounds of birdseed? So we have underlined the most important parts, which is the 1/3, the 4th, and the times. In this case, instead of multiplying, we are actually going to have to divide. Alright, so in case you did forget and you don't remember, when we when we divide fractions, we have to actually change this to times. And if you don't remember, this fraction has to be flipped, right? And it's flipped to become 3/1, and then the 4 just stays the same. So now, if you look at it, now we could just do 4 times 3. 4, 8, 12. So here we have, remember it's 1/3 for every time you think, right? And if you realize, right, 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3 become what? 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 3/3, which now becomes 1. Remember we spoke about that earlier, and in case you forgot, the whole number can be changed to become 3/1 or 3/8, and in this case it just becomes a regular 1. Now this would be considered 1 pound. Remember we have 4 pounds, so we have to do it again. This is, like I said, this is another way for those who learn and are able to understand this problem differently doing it this way. I just like to give different options, okay? So we have this one, right? So now we are at 3 pounds, right? And then the last one is, sorry, got a little, my boxes are not the greatest. And then now we have 4 pounds. Now if you look at it, if we actually count all of these up, it becomes, well, or you could just do multiply, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now we got our answer 2 different ways, and then let's match our 12 with our answer choice. And let's go back to our answer choices, right? So we have A, which is 1 1/3, that's a no. B is 3 2/3, that's a no.
What?
C is 11, that's a no. And then D, we have 12. That is our answer. Ding, 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 ding. Let's do our best. The next problem we have here is about Mr. Reed, and he is making salad dressing by combining vinegar and oil. He combines 8 fluid ounces, well, let's see, that may be important, of oil and 3 fluid ounces of vinegar to make 1 batch. Mr. Reed makes 3 batches of salad dressing. How many total cups of salad dressing does he make? Well, let's start with the first things first. In this case, we are looking at fluid ounces, right? This is something that we have to pay attention to, these little details, right? And they want to know about cups. So off the bat, I want you to remember the reference sheet, and then in the reference sheet, it gives you, if you don't remember, the equations and conversions of things that you may not know. In this case, it gives you the information that a 1 cup equals 8 fluid ounces. And this will be important in a minute. Alright, so now it says here we have 8 fluid ounces and 3 fluid ounces. 1 cup equals 8 fluid ounces, and this is going to be handy in a little bit. So here we have 8 fluid ounces, and he combines that with 3 fluid ounces. And if you remember, the word combine usually has to do with adding. So what I always do is combine, add, right? So we already know that we have to do 8 plus 3, right? And if we know what 8 plus 3 is, it's 8, 9, 10, 11. So now we have 11. The next part is Mr. Reed makes 3 batches. So remember, each batch has 11, and then we're trying to find out how much 3 batches have. So in this case, we're going to do 11 times 3, right? And then that will equal, if we do it on the side, is 33. 3 times 1, 3. 3 times 1, 3. So now we have 33. So the next part, we have total cups of salad dressing. Well, what happens? Remember, we have to do the conversion, right? We already have 33. Let me label it. Fluid ounces. Now, we need to know how many cups. Well, how many cups equals 33 fluid ounces. The way we do that is by dividing by 8, because remember, 8 equals 1 cup. So when we do 33 divided by 8, that equals what? 8 into 33 is 8, 16, 24. Well, guess, we have 32. So 8 times 4 is 32. Now we're left with a remainder 1. We have that remainder 1. And then we have 8, because remember, that is how many times we're going in, and that becomes our denominator. Now, if you remember anything about fractions and adding, even subtracting 2 different denominators, we cannot do anything with that. We have to change it. And let's see how we change it. Well, we have 2 tenths and 6 over 100. There's going to be a lot of vocabulary when it comes to math, and they're going to ask you on these state exams. So we are going to find a common denominator. Well, in this case, as soon as I see a 10 and 100, I already know we're going to change it to 100. Because if we know anything about our multiples and our multiplication facts, is that 10 times 10 equals a grand total of 100, right? So in this case, we will change this fraction. And this fraction, we have to then always remember what you do to the bottom, you do to the top, because it gets jealous. Do what you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. So if we did 10 times 10 to get 100, guess what? We have to multiply the numerator or the top by 10 as well. So now we have 2 times 10, which is 10, 20. And then this one just stays the same. So we just do 100. We are adding here, so now we get the number 26 over 100. Carlos makes 1 pound of snack mix using raisins, nuts, and cereal. So now we have 1/3 pound of nuts. We have 2/5 pound of raisins. How much cereal in pounds does Carlos use? So now we highlighted the pound. We have the 1/3 pound and the 2/5 pounds. Well, in order to find out how many pounds have been used, we have to make sure that we have the same denominator. So in this case, we have to add the numbers 1/3 and 2/5. Well, what happens here is that we now have 2 different denominators. When we have 2 different denominators, when we're adding, we have to, guess what, change them. So in this case, we could use these 2 numbers, multiply it together, and we can get the number 15 for this one and 15 in the bottom, right? So 3 times 15 would give us what? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So we have to multiply by 5. Remember what I told you? What you do to the denominator or the bottom, you have to do to the numerator. We did 3 times 5, we have to do 5 on the top. So 1 times 5 now is 5. And then the same thing applies for the bottom. 5 times what gives us 15? Well, let's find out. 5, 10, 15. 1, 2, 3. So 5 times 3 gives us 15. What you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator, which is also the bottom or the top. Alright? So now we have 2 times 3, which is 6. Right? 2, 4, 6. So now we have that. So we're going to add 5 plus 6 equals 15. So that gives us 11 over 15. Are we done? Not at all. Because remember, we're talking about a whole pound. So since we have this denominator, we know that if we use, when it comes to fractions, we could play around with numbers to help us get the answer, right? So the total pound would be 15 over 15, right? Because we know that 15 over 15 would be 1. But we're going to manipulate that number, 15 over 15, to find out how much cereal is needed to complete this snack mix. So we have 15 over 15 minus 11 over 15, and we get the answer 4 over 15. And that would be our cereal. Which statement describes the product of the expression? When you hear product, always remember answer to a multiplication problem. I'm not going to write out the word, but you got the point, right? So we have the product is always important to know. Expression is just, what is the product of this one? Well, we have 5 times 1 over 2. As I mentioned to you before, when it comes to fractions, it's always easy peasy for the most part because you just multiply across. A whole number becomes now 5 over 1 times 1 over 2. When we find that out, well, it's 5 times 1 is 5. And 1 times 2 is 2. So let's see what that is. I would keep it that way, but because of the answer choices we have, let's try making that improper fraction to a proper fraction. Remember, we divide this number, right? So 2 into 5, well, how many 2's go into 5? Well, we have 2, 4. It goes 2 times, and we have 4, we subtract, now we're left with 1. So now we have 2 and 1 half. You'll see why this is important in a minute. Let's see what our answer choices are. We have it is less than 1/2. Well, is that true? Definitely not, because 2 1/2 is definitely more. It is greater than 5. Is that true? Well, 2 1/2 is definitely not greater than 5. It is between number 5 and 6. Well, heck no, that's 2 1/2. Nope. And guess what? Now we're between 1/2 and 5. There we go. Because what happens? We have this 2 1/2 is definitely between 1/2 and 5. That's it. Easy peasy, right? You got this. What is the value of the expression 1/7 divided by 5? Well, a few times I've mentioned it, but let's review, right? when you see a fraction and it's division, we can't divide, we have to change this to multiply, right? We keep this fraction the same. This one now flips. So instead of it being 5 over 1, now we make it 1 over 5. So this becomes, this goes over here. Now this is what we get. Now when we multiply 1 times 1, it becomes 1, and 7 times 5 now becomes 35. Here we have a line plot. Don't get scared. All we have to do is find out, well, it says here, the line plot shows how much cereal Cheyenne ate in 5 days. What is the total of cups of cereal she ate in 5 days? Well, this specifies cups, but we don't have to do any conversion. It didn't say fluid ounces to anything like that or anything weird like that, so we're on a good start. And now we have fractions. Don't get worried, we have these values for 5 days. So we have 1/4 cup twice, 1/2 twice, and then 3/4 once. So in this case, what we're gonna have to do is just add, which is a good thing. Let's keep like fractions together, right? So in this case, we have, well, definitely the 4's in the bottom, which is our denominator, is always the best thing to keep together, right? So we have 1/4, right? One x and another x. Line plots, be careful, because sometimes they would specify that this would equal 2, 4, 6, or whatever number they put. But in this case, they didn't say anything like that. So just be mindful for the next time that they do things like that to trick you as well. So we have 1/4 plus 1/4, right? And then we have 1/3. So let's put that together, right? So the denominator is 4. Then we have 3, 4, 5, right? So far, let me say it again. We have 1/4, 1/4. Then we have 3/4. Remember, we want to keep the like terms together or same denominators together. 1/2 plus 1/2. The beauty of that is, guess what? 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 2/2, which equals 1. We have 1 cup. Now this 5/4 has to be changed to a mixed number. So remember, we do 5/4. 4 divided by 5, 1, 4, and then we're left with 1. So in this case, this becomes 1 and 1/4. So now we're going to add it all up. So we have 1 here, plus 1 and 1/4, which is here. Remember, keep the like terms together. So whole numbers together, 1 plus 1 is 2, and then we have 1/4. On Saturday, Mark sold 2 7/8 gallons of lemonade. On the same day, Reagan sold 2/3 as much as Mark. How much lemonade in gallons did Reagan sell? First things first, as always, let's check the numbers that matter most, right? So we have 2 7/8, we have the 2/3, and another thing that caught my attention, as much as, all right? And they want to know how much did Reagan sell, all right? So in this case, we are going to have to do multiplication. As much as, I'll put a little x here so you can see that means multiply. So we're going to multiply 2 7/8 times 2/3. Let's review how to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. We can multiply mixed numbers, so let's do it. We have to then change this. The way we do it is 8 times 2 is 16, our denominator times a whole number. Then our answer has to be added to the 7. So we have 16, right? 8, 16 plus 7 equals 23. So we have 23. The denominator stays the same. Now you multiply that by 2/3. So we have 23 times 2, right? So 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. 46 over 8 times 3 is 24. 8, 16, 20. Remember, we have to do 24 divided by 46. Right? So that's 1/24. Remember, we subtract. So 6 minus 4 is 2. 4 minus 2 is 2. So now we're left with 1 and 22 over 24. Oh, wait a minute. I don't see any else here, so I can simplify. So the 1 will stay, and then 22 over 24 is what we need to simplify, right? So if we just did the number 2, because those are the only numbers that we can use to reduce, simplify, or put in the simplest terms, all the same thing, all the terminology I threw at you right now. So 2 divided by 22, well, 2 is 2 is 1, now we're left with 2, right? 1 times 2 is 2, boom, then 0. So we have 11, and then 24 is the same thing, 2 is 24, 1, we have now 4, 2 is 4 is twice, and now we're at 0. So now we are left with a 1 and 11/12. Here we have another problem that has to do with fractions. We have Tara lives 3/4 mile from the park. Nick Hill lives 6 2 as far as Tara. How far in miles does Nick Hill live from the park? I'll tell you some things that caught my attention. I see the 3/4, I see the 6 2/3, and in miles. First thing is always important to know is if it's asking you in miles or in yards or feet, because who knows that you may need to do a conversion. In this case, everything seems that it's in miles. Let's see. You have a mile, 6 2/3 times. So that's so far so good. Again, we see the time as far as. So this could mean that we are multiplying. And in this case, we are. So we do 6 2/3 times 3/4. Now the way we do this is, remember, we change this to n in proper fraction. So we multiply, right? And then we add. So 6 times 3, 6 is 14, plus 2 is 20 over 3 times 3 over 4, right? Because this one stays exactly the same. 20 times 3, well, what is 20 times 3? Well, 3 times 0 is 20, let's do it like that. So 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 2 is 6. So we have 60 over 3 times 4, 3, 6, 9, 12. And guess what? Now we have to do 12 divided by 60. Well, let's do it. We have 12 times 1 equals 12. 12 times 2, 24. 12 times 3, 36. 12 times 4 equals 48. 12 times 5 equals 60. So, guess what? We found out that this is 5. There we have it. We did all the fractions in this segment for the state exam prep. If you have any questions, as always, like, share, comment. Feel free to also subscribe, as I have a lot more coming, and you can click here for the playlist from the last videos that we've had, because so far there's been 2 parts, and also for the next one. I look forward to seeing you, and good luck. You got this. Take care. Bye.